Hello, welcome back to Laser Cut and Fly RC Models. I'm the laser model guy, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to build the wings for the Popsie, for the Aesop Popsie. Now in the last video you'll have seen that we built the fuselage and we got that to almost completed. There's a couple more things to do once we've got the tail built and we've got the wings built. We'll be able to then work out where the centre of gravity is going to be so we can determine where the battery goes. So there's one or two things left to do on the main fuselage, but what we're going to be going on with today is we're going to build the wing. And to start with, I'm going to start with this. This is a 3/4 inch, and I bought a special trailing edge so it thins down itself. And I'm going to start with that by fastening it to the plan, and then I'm going to build from there with the wing spars and then the wing formers, which will go between the trailing edge and the spars, and let's get on with that. So the last thing that I did before starting on the wing was produce the tail, and that's simply built up on here. There was two components there, and then the bottom component, the tail, the fin and the rudder. And what I've used as a hinge for the rudder is I've used these mylar hinges. I'll just show you what they are. They're small pieces of mylar, and these ones are flock coated, and what that means is there's a roughness on them, a rough coat. And how you use those, or how you fit them, is you cut a slot into the material. So you cut a slot into the back of the fin, and you cut a slot into the rudder, and then again down here, and then you slide the hinge into the slot, and you can see that one's in the middle there, in the middle of the, you can see it's inside. You slide it in, and then you slide it into the rudder itself, bearing in mind that you've got to cut a 45-degree angle on both sides going into the centre, so that in effect the rudder comes to a point at the front with these hinges in the centre of that. And then all you do is you just bend it one way slightly and put a drop of super glue in, and because of the flock, what that super glue does is it goes on, it spreads, and it goes right inside the join. And you put another drop on this one, and then maybe a drop either side where you can see it, and then do the same on this side, so it gets super glued in to both the fin and the rudder itself, and you've now got these flexible hinges embedded into the structure itself. So that's what I've used for this, rather than a tape on the outside, and I just thought I'd show you that before we carry on with the wing. So we can see this trailing edge. The wing is in 3 parts. We've got the ones there, the left side, the right side, and the centerpiece. And you can see from this here that there's a dihedral which is separated by this centerpiece. But you can see the wing goes up there, and then goes up there, and then it supports on the center of the fuselage with this flat piece here. So it's going to be made in 3 pieces. So I'm going to line up my trailing edge with the end of the trailing edge on the picture or on the plan, and then I need to cut that at this point on the center of this point here. So I'll be cutting straight across there, and then I'm going to fasten that down, and then I'm going to build from there. Okay, this back edge needs to be notched as well. So what I've done is I've put the rear spar in, and then I've dropped one of the formers on, and I've just marked either side of that former with the knife where the notch has to be and then how far it goes, and then all I'm going to do is move that along, and I'm going to mark out where all these notches have to be, just like that. Okay, and before we fasten anything down again, I'll just shape this back end of the wing a little. Now we can see that it comes to here, the curve, and then it becomes flat. So all we'll do is make sure that's properly aligned, and we'll come into here, and all we want to do is just make little marks coming down, just to give us an idea, and then we can, and then once we cut that, we can smooth it out later and use a little bit of sandpaper to get a really nice curve on there. So I'll just cut that piece along those dots, and there we go. So that seems quite close. So what I'll do before we go any further is I'll just match that up with the other end, and I'll cut the other piece of trailing edge exactly the same as that, so that I've got the same starting point for once we're all together and I'm sanding down to get the shape. At least we'll be starting from the same point. Okay, so this is the next bit. There's our curved bit, so if I lay that on top there, make sure that's very flush at the end, so exactly the same length, and then all I want to do is I'm just going to come along there and mark this. So that's the curve basically, and what I'll do now is I'll just cut along that line, and then I'll know that my the other end will be exactly the same, the other end of the trailing edge. So that's as simple as that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this set now before I start to construct the end, and then where this join is here, I'll be cutting another notch for R2, and then be fitting R3 and the end of the wingtip, and then we'll fit the leading edge on this front part of the wing. So we'll leave that there for a few minutes just to set, and then we'll be right back and I'll show you how we finish that off. So I've fitted this part of the wingtip here, and all I'm going to do now is cut the leading edge, and then we'll fit it into these little bird mouths, or the little notches at the front of our wing formers. Now the leading edge needs to go from here to here, just there, so I'm going to cut that straight across there, just like that, and then that will be able to just fasten in. We'll just glue that straight in there, and that will be perfect. So let me do that. And we'll worry about connecting at this end later. We'll just get the leading edge in first. And there we go. Just use a couple of these long pins to make sure that we're held firmly in place. Okay, we'll just let that set a minute and then we'll bring the next spar and we'll put the top spar in and bring that down to meet the wing tip. Do that in 1 second. Okay, so the next part I'm going to do is this central section. The leading edge is now firmly on, but in order to do this central section we need this plywood strengthener that sets the angle for the dihedral and such, and because that will need the wing to be up at an angle when it connects on, we need to just move that out the way for now. So I'll just remove those pins. We've moved that out the way. So what we'll do is we will start with our trailing edge. I've cut this piece to size and I'm going to fasten that down just there. But before I do that, we'll just cut the notches in so that our formers will be able to sit in correctly. And you can see these formers, they're the same as the R2s, but they're cut so that they will go straight up against the plywood sheet, and then the other side will have the other part of the former connected on, and the braces will go through above and below, just as it does in the other part of the wing. So I'll just leave those there to one side for now. I'll just mark up and cut the notches into our Okay, so very first thing we need to do is we'll put this spar underneath. Now that is the 1/8 by 1/4, and we've got that right here. It's our 1/8 by 1/4. So I'll just cut a piece of that to the right length, and we'll put that on, and then we'll have something to mount our formers on. Use our long pins. Just come straight down the middle. Okay, that's our spar in place. So I can now glue these into place. I'll do the 2 centre ones first just to firm everything up, and then I'll put the end ones on. So on both sides, get all around this. And then just put that into place, slide it down, and that's our first former in. Just leave that glue on there, I think. Okay, let's try our second one. Oops, got a little bit on the side there. Okay, so I'll just fasten that one in, make sure it's in exactly the right place. And that's now the basis for our centre section. So what I'll do now is I will attach the 2 sides, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to put the plywood in and put the front end on, so that we're ready. Okay, so this is the plywood now in place. It's glued on, and I'm just going to leave that like that to set so that this becomes really solid. Now I haven't put these formers on because I thought it would be a better way to do that would be to wait until we're setting the dihedral, and then we can complete the notch in here and then drop them in then, which will help to fasten the 2 wings together as well. So I'm going to wait until we're ready to attach the wing before I put the other 2 formers in. These are the 2 formers here. So that's where we're at, and we'll come back in just 1 minute and we'll carry on with the build. Okay, so I've now fitted the front part of the former, making sure that that's pressed firmly against the plywood backing, and then I've pinned those in place, and I've put the short piece of leading edge on as well, that will this bit here, which will connect to the main parts of the wing. All that's held in place with pins, and what I'll need to do now is let that set. So it's time to start building the other wing now. So I'm going to begin in exactly the same way as before, by putting the trailing edge on and then building forward from there. So I'll just quickly get that done and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so while I wait for this to all set, I'm going to start working on the tail. Now, if you just have a look, you can see that this is these are the elevators, just there, and this piece here extends to the rear with a dowel going through it. The top and bottom are covered with 1/64 inch ply. I will not do that. I'll be covering it with 1/16 balsa, so it'll be a little bit thicker than this, but I'll make adjustments accordingly. So that's the tail completed. All I need to do is put the leading edge on, and then we need to make the elevators and put the hinges in, just like we did with the rudder. Okay, so I've completed the wings now, and I've completed the tail, and I've inserted these mylar hinges. Now you can see I've not stuck these in just yet. So all they do is they slide in to the slots that I've cut in the trailing edge, and then into the elevator itself, and then you slide those in just like that, and just leaving a tiny space, a tiny gap, so there's a little bit of movement. I've also cut a slight chamfer on the front edge of the elevator and underneath as well, so that sort of comes to a point, and the hinges will allow it to move. Now I've used a 2.5mm dowel here. It's actually a skewer that you use on the barbecue, a bamboo skewer. I've used that as the torque bar or the torque rod between the two,
So so that will sit on the back of the fuselage, and this piece of wood here, which I've carefully shaped, this piece of trailing edge, I've carefully shaped that will sit on the back of the fuselage over the dowel, and then the elevator will be able to work once I put the horn on and connect it up to the servo. So that's what I've done with the tailplane. The stabilizer and the rudder will then sit on top of that, mounted on the fuselage, and that's got the same arrangement with the hinges as I've shown you already. Okay, so that's where we're at the moment. Well, that's just about finished now. We've got the fuselage made up. I've got the wing completed, ready for covering. The tailplane is complete. I've got the hinges in, so that's ready for covering. This is the piece that will sit at the back of the tailplane, and when that sits on, then the fin with the rudder will all sit on the back there, mounted onto this and onto the wing. So I think that's all we're going to do for today, and in the next video what I intend to do is I'm going to very briefly show covering the plane, because we've done that before, and then we're going to take it out and fly in the same video to sort of tie things up a little bit better. So look forward to seeing you next time, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.